Hi, welcome to the Accountant Guy. Today, we are going to learn how we are going to build this income tracker in Notion and stay on top of our finances. In this Notion income tracker, we will have 4 sections. Total earnings, which shows the total amount of earnings for a given period. Sources of income such as salary, side hustle, and other sources of income that shows the total earnings for each individual income and the percentage of the total income. Frequency of income, which shows how frequently you earn an income, calculating the total earnings and the number of sources for each frequency of income. Overview section, which shows monthly income segregated into 4 quarters along with the percentage of monthly earnings to the total earnings. In order to build this minimalistic Notion income tracker, we will need 5 databases, that is, Income Details Database, which shows the details of the income earned. Income Source Database, that shows the income earned with respect to each source. Frequency of Income Database, which gives a complete overview of how frequently an income is earned during a period. Total Earnings Database, which reflects the total earnings earned during a given period. Period Database, which shows periodical income earned during a year. Let's get started. We are going to start building the Income Details Database. Here, we will be feeding the details related to income and we will find the analysis related to that. In the Income Details Database, first we have the Income Details property, which has a title property, and this is the default property that is created. Here, we will specify the different sources of income that we have received during the year. Then we have the period of income, which has a relation property with another database, which is the period database. This is shown both ways in both databases. This is created when we establish a relationship with the period database. Here it reflects monthly incomes with respect to each income source. Then we have the income source, which specifies the source of income. This is again related to the income source database, which is reflected both ways, and this specifies the 3 sources of income we have specified in the database. Then we have the frequency of income, which specifies how frequently we earn an income. This again is related to the frequency of income database, which is shown both ways. Here we specify how frequently we earn an income. Finally, we have the amount, which shows the amount of income earned for a particular period. In the end, we have the sum of the income earned during the period. Now we are going to talk about Income Source Database. In this database, we are going to analyze the different sources of income and see what we can obtain from this. First property is the name property, which defines the different sources of income, that is salary, side hustle, and other income. Then we have Earnings Database, which is related to the Total Earnings Database. This has been added over to the 3 sources of income specified here. Then we have Income Details property, which is again related to the Income Details Database. We have related all the incomes over here. Next, we derive the actual income with the use of a COLLAB property in the actual income property. This is rolled up from the Income Details Database, which is the earlier database. Here we have specified the property of the amount, and it calculates the sum value of the property. Similarly, we have Total Earnings property, which is a roll-up property that is derived from the Earnings database. This defines the amount and it calculates the amount from the Earnings database, showing the original value. Next up, we have the Frequency property. This is a roll-up property that comes from the Income Details database. It extracts the frequency of income property from the related database, showing the original values in here. Lastly, we have Earnings in Percentage, which is a formula property, or it calculates the percentage of earnings to the total earnings. This has a percent format represented in a green bar. Now let's move on to the next database. Now we will discuss the Frequency of Income database, which has all the analysis related to how frequently we earn an income. First off, we have the frequency column, which is a title column. Here it indicates how frequently we earn an income, such as monthly income, annual income, quarterly income, half-yearly income, one-time income. Next up, we have earnings associated to each frequency of income. This is a roll-up property, which is derived from the related property in the next column. This calculates the earnings amount, that is the property, and we derive the sum value for this. So essentially, earnings that related to all forms of income is represented for each mode of frequency of income over here. Next up, we have a relation property, which is related to the income details database, and this defines all the sources of income related to each frequency. This is automatically generated from the earlier database that we had created. Finally, we have the sources of income, which is a formula property that is calculated with the number of sources we have over here. If the number is 1, we define it as one source. If the number of sources are 2, then it's 2 sources. If the sources are 3, then it's 3 sources, and if the sources are 0, then no source. This is how sources of income is generated. We have completed the frequency of income database. Now let's check the next database. Now we have total earnings database. In here, we just relate the total earnings associated to all the 3 sources of income and find the earnings associated to it. So we have 3 properties associated to it. First is the total earnings written in title property. This is described in name. Then we have income source, which is again a relation property established to income source database, wherein we have specified the 3 sources of income. Finally, we are using a roll-up property, in the form of total earnings, which is rolling up the values of the income sources and calculating the total earnings associated to these income sources and finding the sum of it. Now let's move on to the next one. Finally, we reached the last database, which is the period database. This is where we calculate the periodical income for each month and do further analysis on the same. This also shows the percentage of earnings each month to the total earnings for the year. As you can see, the first column is the month property, which is a title type property that represents the month of income. Then we have income details, which are related to another database that is income details, which shows the income we earn. Then we have the earnings property, which is rolled up from the income details database, calculating the earnings amount, which is being presented as sum. Next, we have the total earnings, which is rolled up from another related database that is total earnings, representing the earnings amount and shown with original values. Thus it shows the earnings for each month and the total earnings for all the months combined. Then we are calculating the proportion of each month's earning to the total earning. This is derived from a formula wherein we calculate the earnings of each month and divide it by the total earnings. This is specified in the form of a percent and given in a green bar. Here we have completed all the databases. Now we will approach the presentation in the primary dashboard. This is the primary dashboard that presents the total earnings. The total earnings represent the total income earned during the period. This is nothing but a link to the total earnings database discussed earlier, and it is represented in the list view. Next up, we have the sources of income. This is a 3-columnar approach of presentation, which is created by typing / and then 3 columns to give a 3-columnar presentation. Once we have the 3 columns, we need to link them to the income source and specify a gallery format to the same. Here it represents the total actual income and percentage of each source of income to the total income. Next up, we have the frequency, which is nothing but derived from the frequency of income database, which is given a layout of gallery form. Here we have the total earnings and the sources of earnings for each. Finally, we get to the overview section, which is linked to the period database along with the gallery mode of presentation. Here we have divided the information into 4 quarters wherein we have specified individual months for each quarter. It shows the earnings for each month and the proportion of earnings towards the total earnings. For each quarter, we have applied filter, where we have specified the respective months for each quarter in the presentation. So this brings us to the end of the Notion Income Tracker. I hope you found this video helpful. You can directly get this template from the link in the description.